The PRC has built systems that can actually deny us the ability to use our satellites the way we want to. The PRC is investing heavily in all 6 categories. A constellation of thousands of satellites is mind-boggling from where I started in this business. We thought in terms of 1 and 2 and exquisite satellites, procurement chains and economies of scale didn't exist. Now it does.
Observed 5 different objects in space, maneuvering in and out and around each other in synchronicity and in control. That's what we call dogfighting in space.
The U.S. Space Force tracks about 40,000 objects in orbit. Most are registered satellites, space debris, or rocket stages. But intelligence analysts identified something different in 2024. Objects with no registration, no identification signals, no communication with ground control. Just Chinese spacecraft operating in complete darkness, moving without permission, changing orbits without warning, approaching American satellites without explanation.
General Chance Saltzman, Chief of Space Operations, told Congress the threat is mind-boggling. China now operates over 1,000 satellites, at least 347 of them designed specifically to target U.S. forces in future conflict. The pace is accelerating beyond every Pentagon projection, and American officials admit they're struggling to keep up with an enemy they can't fully see.
The Dark Fleet isn't science fiction. It's Pentagon terminology for spacecraft operating without identification, invisible to civilian tracking, unknown missions, unknown capabilities. China has perfected the art of space stealth while building the world's most dangerous orbital weapons arsenal. China's Shenlong spaceplane completed its 3rd mission in 2024, each flight lasting over 8 months, each mission deploying mysterious objects that intelligence analysts call wingmen. The objects appear and disappear from tracking systems. When visible, they emit signals on frequencies reserved for Chinese military operations. Their purpose remains classified.
Amateur satellite trackers identified 6 objects deployed during the December 2023 mission, designated Object A through F. Some transmitted data. Others remained silent. Several changed orbits independently. The implications terrified space analysts. China had developed spacecraft that could hide, maneuver undetected, and potentially threaten other satellites without warning.
Unlike America's X-37B spaceplane, which announces missions and maintains ground communication, the Shenlong operates under total radio silence. No mission updates, no status reports. The only evidence comes from amateur astronomers who spot it crossing overhead. Even then, the spacecraft transmits signals only when passing specific geographic regions, particularly North America. Scott Tilley, a Canadian satellite tracker, detected something unprecedented. The Shenlong emitted strong signals exclusively when crossing the west coast of North America. The transmissions appeared directed at either a clandestine ground station or ships positioned off the American coast. The signals lasted exactly as long as the spacecraft remained visible from those coordinates. Then, complete silence.
This wasn't testing. This was operational intelligence gathering with real-time data transmission to assets positioned near U.S. territorial waters. China had moved beyond experiments to active espionage operations hundreds of miles above American soil. China launched the world's most advanced spy satellite in December 2023. Yaogan 41 operates from geostationary orbit, 22,370 miles above Earth. At that altitude, it maintains constant surveillance of 1/3 of the planet's surface. The resolution is 2.5 meters. Sharp enough to identify individual vehicles. Sharp enough to track stealth aircraft that cost America billions to develop. Traditional reconnaissance satellites orbit much lower, providing excellent detail but only brief glimpses of targets. They might photograph a military base once or twice daily. Yaogan 41 never stops watching. It tracks moving targets in real time. It identifies deployment patterns. It predicts military movements before they happen. But Yaogan 41 operates as part of a larger network. China maintains 3 other geostationary spy satellites with broader coverage. Together, they create a surveillance web, monitoring global shipping lanes, military installations, and strategic facilities around the clock. The system supplements traditional reconnaissance satellites rather than replacing them. Lower orbit platforms provide detailed imagery. The geostationary network provides persistent surveillance. The combination creates unprecedented intelligence capabilities. China can detect U.S. military movements, track equipment deployments, and identify operational vulnerabilities in real time. The satellites monitor commercial shipping, resource extraction, and infrastructure development worldwide. China gains strategic intelligence about global supply chains, economic activities, and technological developments that would take human spies decades to collect.
Most concerning is China's radar satellite in geostationary orbit. Ludi Tance 4, launched in August 2023, represents the world's first operational space-based radar system at that altitude. Unlike optical cameras, radar penetrates clouds in darkness. It identifies objects by shape and movement patterns. It tracks aircraft, ships, and vehicles, regardless of weather conditions that would blind traditional satellites. Chinese researchers publish studies claiming their radar satellites can detect American stealth aircraft from orbit. The system uses multiple satellites working together. One transmits radar pulses while others receive the echoes. This configuration reduces background interference and enhances detection of targets designed to avoid radar. If accurate, aircraft like the F-22 and B-21 bomber might no longer be invisible from space. 5 Chinese satellites demonstrated coordinated, quote, dogfighting maneuvers in 2024. Space Force officials watch commercial tracking systems as the spacecraft perform synchronized movements around each other, approaching, withdrawing, repositioning. The exercise required precise thruster control and real-time coordination between multiple vehicles operating hundreds of miles apart. The demonstration involved 3 Xi'an 24C experimental satellites and 2 Shijian 605 spacecraft. Intelligence analysts believe the latter carry signals intelligence equipment for intercepting enemy communications. The maneuvers showcase China's ability to perform complex orbital operations that could serve inspection, capture, or attack missions, depending on intent. China operates satellites equipped with robotic arms capable of grabbing other spacecraft. Official statements describe these as orbital servicing vehicles for satellite refueling and repairs. But the same technology that fixes broken solar panels can remove them. Equipment designed to extend satellite lifespans can terminate them. The line between maintenance and warfare depends entirely on Chinese intentions. The threat extends beyond physical contact. Chinese satellites carry electronic warfare payloads for jamming communications, spoofing GPS signals, and blinding optical sensors. They conduct reversible attacks that temporarily disable targets without permanent damage. These operations are difficult to detect and impossible to prove. American satellites might experience technical difficulties rather than obvious enemy action. Intelligence assessments suggest China operates multiple Inspector satellites in geostationary orbit. These spacecraft approach U.S. satellites, conduct close-range surveillance, and gather intelligence about American capabilities. Some maintain observation positions for months. The Inspector satellites are small, maneuverable, and designed to avoid detection by ground-based tracking systems. China revolutionized satellite manufacturing through mass production techniques borrowed from consumer electronics. While America builds satellites individually as custom platforms, China standardized designs and automated assembly lines. The result is dramatic cost reduction and unprecedented deployment speed. Chinese facilities produce satellites at rates approaching 1 per day. Individual units are smaller and less capable than American counterparts. But quantity creates advantages that quality cannot overcome. 1,000 small satellites provide more persistent coverage than a dozen large ones. They're also more resilient to attack. Destroying several units doesn't significantly degrade overall constellation performance. The production advantage extends to launch capabilities. China's launch rate doubled every few years throughout the 20s. The country now conducts more space launches annually than any other nation. This capacity enables rapid satellite replacement and quick constellation deployment. In conflict, China could potentially replace losses faster than opponents could inflict them. China's space program operates under unified military control with civilian cover. The People's Liberation Army Aerospace Force, established in 2024, consolidates all space activities under single command. This eliminates coordination problems that plague American programs, where military, intelligence, and civilian agencies often work at cross purposes. Integration enables rapid decision-making and resource allocation. When China identifies capability gaps, resources flow immediately to address them. When threats emerge, countermeasures deploy quickly. The system prioritizes speed over perfection, following Silicon Valley models of rapid iteration and continuous improvement. This approach explains China's ability to surprise American intelligence repeatedly. U.S. assessments predict Chinese capabilities based on traditional development timelines, but China doesn't follow traditional schedules. They build multiple prototypes simultaneously, test them in parallel, and deploy successful versions while discarding failures. The process compresses years of development into months. China operates the world's most comprehensive space weapons program. Unlike America's fragmented approach, Chinese capabilities span 6 weapon categories across ground-based and space-based platforms. The arsenal includes directed energy weapons, radio frequency jammers, and kinetic kill vehicles designed for different orbital regimes and mission requirements. Ground-based anti-satellite missiles pose the most immediate threat to American spacecraft. China's direct ascent weapons can reach targets in low Earth orbit within minutes of launch. The country has conducted multiple tests, creating debris fields that threaten all orbital operations. The 2007 test that destroyed China's own weather satellite generated over 3,000 trackable debris pieces that continue endangering spacecraft 18 years later. China's ground-based laser systems can blind or damage satellite sensors from thousands of miles away. Unlike kinetic weapons that create obvious destruction, laser attacks might appear as equipment malfunctions. American satellites could lose critical capabilities without obvious evidence of hostile action. The attacks are deniable, reversible, and difficult to attribute to specific sources. Electronic warfare capabilities represent China's most sophisticated threat. Chinese satellites can jam military communications, spoof GPS navigation signals, and disrupt satellite command systems. These soft-kill attacks disable targets without physical damage. They're harder to detect than kinetic weapons and provide plausible deniability for Chinese operations. China's co-orbital weapons pose the greatest long-term danger. These spacecraft can approach American satellites, conduct surveillance, and potentially deploy attacks at close range. Some carry robotic arms for grabbing targets. Others might deploy nets, projectiles, or directed energy weapons. The proximity removes warning time and complicates defensive responses. General Saltzman warned Congress that modern American military operations depend entirely on space-based capabilities. There is no good training for a day without space, he testified. We are not built for it, and we cannot work effectively around it. The admission reveals dangerous vulnerabilities that China is specifically designed to exploit. GPS guides weapons to targets across multiple domains. Military communications coordinate forces across continents. Reconnaissance satellites identify threats and track enemy movements. Weather satellites support mission planning. Navigation satellites enable precision operations. An attack on orbital infrastructure would cripple American military effectiveness without touching ground-based forces. The vulnerabilities extend beyond military operations. Commercial shipping relies on GPS navigation systems. Financial markets depend on satellite-synchronized timing signals. Emergency services use satellite communications. Internet traffic routes through orbital relay systems. Agricultural operations depend on weather data and GPS guidance. China has effectively weaponized critical infrastructure that everyone assumed was safe. American civilians don't recognize their space dependencies. Saltzman explained to Congress, your online banking, your Amazon shopping, paying for gas at the pump, your direct deposit into your bank account, not to mention Google Maps getting you to the store. Food reaches stores because farmers use GPS and weather data to grow crops.
The space capabilities that enable American life have become targets for Chinese weapons.
Most concerning is the psychological impact of space attacks. Americans expect technology to work seamlessly. GPS navigation is assumed to be accurate. Communications are expected to connect. Financial transactions are presumed secure. Attacks that disrupt these systems would create panic disproportionate to their military effect. China gained strategic leverage through civilian disruption, rather than purely military targets. The U.S. Space Force was established in 2019 to address growing space threats. But the service faces budget constraints, bureaucratic obstacles, and technological challenges that limit effectiveness. General Saltzman admitted to Congress that Space Force has more missions unfunded than funded. Critical capabilities remain years from deployment, while Chinese threats accelerate. America's space defense reflects traditional military thinking designed for different threats. Build better satellites, harden them against attack, develop backup systems, deploy defensive weapons. The strategy assumes enemies will provide warning and follow established escalation patterns. China doesn't operate under those assumptions. Chinese space capabilities developed faster than American intelligence predicted. Pentagon assessments estimated China wouldn't achieve current capabilities until 2030. They achieved them by 2024. The intelligence failure created planning gaps that persist today. Resources allocated for future threats became inadequate for current realities. Manufacturing disadvantages compound the problem. China builds satellites rapidly and cheaply, using standardized designs and automated production. America continues relying on expensive, custom-built systems with extended development timelines. Replacing damaged American satellites requires years. China could replace dozens in the same period. Launch capabilities reveal similar gaps. China conducts more space launches than the rest of the world combined. Multiple launch sites, various rocket designs, and surplus manufacturing capacity provide redundancy and resilience. America depends heavily on SpaceX for military launches. While SpaceX provides excellent service, the concentration creates vulnerability. Disrupting one company significantly affects American space access. Congressional funding reflects these challenges. Space Force receives approximately $30 billion annually. China's classified space budget is estimated at similar or higher levels. Given lower Chinese costs, their budget provides significantly more capability per dollar. The resource imbalance affects every aspect of space competition, from research to operations. China's space program operates with unprecedented secrecy compared to American transparency. While U.S. space activities receive extensive media coverage and congressional oversight, Chinese operations occur behind classified barriers. Intelligence agencies struggle to assess threats they cannot observe or verify. China launches satellites without announcing missions. They test capabilities without revealing results. They deploy systems without explaining purposes. The opacity prevents accurate threat assessment and complicates defensive planning. American officials must prepare for capabilities that might or might not exist based on fragmentary intelligence and amateur observations. The Shenlong spaceplane exemplifies this challenge. After 3 successful missions, totaling over 2 years in orbit, its actual capabilities remain unknown. Intelligence analysts observe launches and landings. They track orbital maneuvers through telescope networks. But they cannot determine what experiments occur or what technologies are tested during extended missions. Mystery objects deployed by Shenlong create additional uncertainty. Satellite trackers identified at least 6 objects released during recent missions. Some emit signals, while others remain silent. Some maneuver independently, while others drift in formation. The variety suggests multiple technologies under development, but specifics remain classified. Chinese satellites often carry multiple payloads with unclear purposes. Single spacecraft might combine communications, navigation, and reconnaissance functions. They might include experimental technologies alongside operational systems. The complexity makes threat assessment difficult and defensive planning nearly impossible. China's space advantages create strategic options that didn't exist before. The ability to monitor global activities in real time provides intelligence for economic and military decision-making. The capability to disable enemy satellites offers leverage in conflicts and negotiations without obvious escalation. Most significantly, China can threaten American space assets without triggering immediate retaliation. Satellites that experience technical difficulties during crises might be suffering Chinese attacks. But proving hostile action requires intelligence that probably won't be available during events. The ambiguity provides China with deniable offensive capabilities. The implications for Taiwan scenarios are particularly concerning. China could disable U.S. reconnaissance satellites to blind American forces during invasion operations. They could jam communications to prevent coordination between allies. They could spoof GPS signals to disrupt weapons guidance systems, all while maintaining plausible deniability about their actions. Global surveillance networks provide China with strategic warning about American military movements. Aircraft deployments, ship movements, and troop concentrations become visible from orbit. China gains preparation time for conflicts, while forcing America to operate under constant observation. Economic implications are equally significant. China's space-based surveillance helps identify valuable resources, monitor agricultural production, and track industrial activities worldwide. The information supports trade negotiations, investment decisions, and strategic planning. Space dominance translates to economic advantage across multiple sectors. Perhaps most importantly, China demonstrated that space warfare is possible without catastrophic consequences. Their attacks are reversible rather than destructive. Their weapons are precisely targeted rather than indiscriminate. The approach makes space conflict more likely by reducing apparent costs and risks. The future of global security now depends partly on events occurring hundreds of miles above Earth. Satellites that most people never consider have become critical infrastructure for economic and military power. China recognized this reality and acted accordingly. Whether America can respond effectively remains an open question. General Saltzman posed the fundamental challenge to Congress. How can America protect space capabilities it depends on for everything from banking to national defense, when the Space Force itself is shrinking? That's a disconnect that's really hard to square, he testified. How much more important space is becoming versus why is the Space Force shrinking in size? So what you continue to do, the disconnect reflects broader American failure to understand the space domain's centrality to modern life. China views space as the ultimate high ground that enables control over terrestrial activities. America treats space as one domain among many, rather than the foundation that enables all others. China's Dark Fleet operates beyond American observation and outside international law. Their capabilities exceed what Pentagon officials thought possible. Their intentions remain hidden behind operational security that makes the old Soviet Union look transparent. The only certainty is that China continues expanding capabilities while America struggles to understand what they've already deployed. The space race of the 21st century isn't about reaching the moon first. It's about controlling the infrastructure that enables modern civilization. China is winning that race by building weapons America didn't know existed to threaten systems America cannot survive without. The Pentagon couldn't believe China's capabilities were real until it was too late to prevent them. Anyway, that's it for the video.